Coming to you live from Ersprung Gymnasium on the campus of Baldwin-Wallace University. Welcome inside our coverage of the crosstown rivalry. It's the John Carroll Blue Streaks and the Baldwin-Wallace Yellow Jackets here on BWYellowJackets.com. I'm Brendan Gulick, really glad to be along with you tonight for what is the 128th all-time meeting between these two sides. And of course, because it's been so competitive of late, of course it would be 64-63 in favor of BW all-time. A very close all-time series. Two schools that share a lot of the same recruits. The coaching staffs know each other well. They often see each other in the same gymnasiums looking at the same local talent. And frankly, a lot of kids on both teams that grew up playing against each other, or in some cases, even on the same high school programs. It's a really special rivalry in the city of Cleveland. And while it's certainly a different atmosphere here tonight with an empty gymnasium during this pandemic, it's a night to be grateful that there is basketball, that these two teams are healthy enough to play, and that they'll have a chance to play actually for the second day in a row. Coverage tonight sponsored by the Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine Department. This is the healthcare provider for BW Athletics. By Dan Andrews and Olympic Forest Products, a global recycling company. And by the Oswald Company. They handle all of your insurance and risk management needs. Especially grateful if you're a John Carroll fan watching that the team is able to play, period, let alone play in this game, because it's been a rocky couple of weeks for the Blue Streaks. They did play last night against BW across town, and the Blue Streaks beat the Yellow Jackets by 3 points last evening, 69-66. But it's the first game that John Carroll had played since their season opener 2 weeks prior. John Carroll had 3 consecutive games postponed because of the effects that the pandemic had had on their team. Glad they are now healthy enough to play. They were unable to play a second game against Heidelberg and had both of their games against Mount Union canceled last week. So the Blue Streaks come in 1-1, dropping the season opener to Heidelberg and then winning last night against BW. More about these two teams along the way. Of course, the Blue Streaks are in their navy tops, and your Yellow Jackets are in white tops with brown and gold numbering and lettering. Jackets win the opening tip. Off we go. And immediately have a whistle. And it looks like maybe there was a clock malfunction because the shot clock had not started counting down. So they'll get that adjusted. Starting lineups for the Jackets include sophomore guard Jake Snyder out of Archbishop Hoban. Sophomore guard Anthony Mazzio from Canton, Ohio. He went to Massillon Jackson High School, and Mazzio having a heck of a start to the year. 17 points per game. One of the best shooters here the Yellow Jackets have. He fires that 3 and is a little off the mark. Junior point guard is Shane Zalba from Mentor. Freshman guard Drew Wennis, a terrific young player from Huron. And Christian Pfeiffer, a freshman forward from Amherst. So those are the 5 starters for the Yellow Jackets. This is Eric Hanna driving the baseline and kicking out to Luke Hippler, who misfires on his 3. Hannah's a sophomore out of Olmsted Falls High School, which is practically in Baldwin-Wallace's backyard. There's a turnover. This is Mason Trubisky coming up the floor. Firing into the corner where Jackson Sartain was open for a moment. Hannah raises for 3, and it goes halfway down before popping away. Mason Trubisky, the younger brother of current Chicago Bears quarterback Mitch Trubisky. Mason, a sophomore from Mentor. Luke Hippler, one of 3 seniors in the starting lineup. He's from Westerville, St. Francis de Sales High School down in the Columbus area. Emil Hess out of Berkshire High in Burton, Ohio. He's a senior as well. And of course, Jackson Sartain, whose name you are certainly familiar with if you follow OAC basketball even in the slightest, as we finally have our first bucket of the night. It belongs to Luke Hippler. Jackson Sartain, in his first 3 seasons of college basketball, broke the OAC 3-point shooting record. There's a 2-point jump shot for Christian Pfeiffer. Sartain, as a freshman, hit 90 of 195 threes. His sophomore season was the single best individual season in conference history. 102 out of 218 three-pointers. That's nearly 47%. A rebound on the baseline for Trubisky keeps it alive. This is Sartain firing. Off target. As a junior last year, Sartain hit 97 out of 206 threes, 47.1%. Top of the arc, No good from Trubisky. And finally, the Jackets grab a rebound. So through his first 3 years as a college basketball player, the former Medina Bee here in Northeast Ohio, Pfeiffer banks one home. Sartain had 289 three-pointers out of 619 attempts over 3 seasons. The all-time leader in OAC history. Uses the left hand there and can't connect. Last night against Baldwin Wallace, he connected on 4 of 6 from behind the three-point line, so he's currently sitting at 293 career three-pointers. There's a 3-ball left side. Drew Wennis, bottom of the net. Jackets off to a pretty good start, 7-2. We're at the 16:49 mark of the first half. So depending on what kind of night Sartain might have in style as he get called for an offensive foul. Really good work there by Wennis to draw the charge. Foul is on Hippler. Anyways, considering the incredible shooting prowess that Sartain has, you never know. He could certainly go off for 7 in a game. A couple of substitutions here, including Emmett Chambers, big man that formerly played at St. Edward High School. He checks in. Jared Bublenick, sophomore out of Sheffield Lake, Ohio, which is out on the west side of Cleveland. He's out on the floor too as that one is turned over. Tom Heil and Brian Schmidt popping off the Yellow Jacket bench begging for a tip, and I think that may get overturned, and they will. So it's going to stay with the Jackets. 7-2 BW, about 3.5 minutes in. Jake Snyder on the baseline for the inbound. Ball bobbled around quite a bit. Zalba still has plenty of time. Snyder, long-range 3 try. Not that one. And Chambers finally clears it. Sartain raises for 3, and that one's pure. Also, Connor O'Toole on the floor for the Yellow Jackets. Freshman guard out of Gilmore. And the son of Sean O'Toole, who is a legendary coach here in the Northeast Ohio area. Good little turnaround underneath. Wennis continues a nice start offensively. 9-5 Jackets. We're under the 16-minute mark here. To give you an idea of what kind of special night it would take for Sartain to break that 300 three-pointer threshold, the all-time school record for John Carroll is 9 made three-pointers in a game. It happened twice in back-to-back years. As Hippler tries from just south of the elbow and puts it in. Joey Meyer and Michael Hartnett. Meyer, a former Mentor Cardinal. Hardner, a former St. Edward Eagle. A couple of Northeast Ohio guys that certainly understand this rivalry. They both hit 9 three-pointers in a game. Part of some really good shooting teams that John Carroll had back in basically a 3 or 4 year stretch from 2008 through maybe 2012. Meanwhile, 3-point play opportunity coming for Mazzio after a good little layup, drew that contact. It's 11-7 as he steps to the stripe. 15-19 left in the first half. And Mazzio makes it. Connor O'Toole into the forecourt. Good drive to the bucket, and Mason Trubisky makes it count. So anyways, Sartain is certainly capable of hitting 7 threes in a game, but it would take nearly a school record performance for him to hit that 300 career three-pointer mark tonight. Regardless, it's the 3rd game of his senior year, and the fact that he's even that close to that record is simply ridiculous. Wennis, he's showing off a little range of his own. 15-9, the Yellow Jackets out front early. It was a good one last night in terms of tight score, competitive nature, but the Yellow Jackets really didn't shoot the ball very well last night and had an awful lot of open looks that did not drop. Zalba one-on-one against O'Toole, and he's fouled. So a good fast start for BW. Head coaches in this series are young in their coaching careers, but I wouldn't certainly call them young coaches. Tom Heil is certainly certainly intimately familiar with this rivalry between his time as an assistant and now in his 6th year as the head coach. This is Tom Heil's 10th year at BW, and he sports an 85-58 overall record. He spent 1 year as the head coach at Defiance prior to coming back to Baldwin-Wallace. Jake Snyder checks out of the game, and freshman Luke Driscoll is on the floor in his place. Zalba's second free throw good as well, 17-9 Jackets. Of course, these two teams are typically among the best in the OAC. 3 seasons back, when this group of seniors were freshmen, John Carroll won the OAC tournament. As the travel gives it back to BW. 2 seasons ago, Baldwin-Wallace won the OAC championship. But they're really, it's amazing how these rosters turn over. Shane Zalba was the only player on BW's current roster that was a part of that OAC championship run 2 seasons ago. He was a freshman when that happened. The Yellow Jackets were veteran heavy during their couple of really good years as Mazzio buries a triple. How about this start for BW? 20-9 all over the Blue Streaks. 6 minutes and change gone by. Kick to the corner, good ball fake, and an open 3 ball goes home. Eric Hanna, no problem. 20-12. Zalba certainly the kind of guy that Coach Heil and Coach Schmidt certainly feel like they can trust. As Wennis buries yet another 3 ball. And by the way, I didn't say it, but Jackson Simmons is on the floor and had a double-digit rebound performance last night. Good effort from him. It's almost pulled away. This is Hugh Brown giving to Sartain. 3 glances off the side of the iron. Jackson gets another chance, and he makes the most of it. That's what he does. 23-15. Jackson Sartain is also the all-time leader in Ohio high school basketball 3-point shooting percentage history. Mazzio continues this exquisite early first-half effort, shooting the ball from the outside. These two teams are letting it fly big time. Jackson has helped we got a traveling violation. Jackson Sartain's helped John Carroll hit 3 of 8 from deep. He's got 2 of them. While the Yellow Jackets are showing off, flexing their muscles, 5 of 7 from behind the 3-point line, and Wennis hasn't missed yet. He's got 11 in the first half. Mazzio, a couple threes, has 9. Point guard here now for the Jackets is Samson Albert, sophomore out of Revere High School down in Richfield. Mazzio working on Brown. Wennis open again. Oh my goodness. Drew Wennis ripping the nets here early in a rivalry game. 4 of 4, he's got 14 points. 29-15, Baldwin-Wallace all over the Blue Streaks. Sartain from the left elbow, off target, and Simmons clears it. Wennis drives a baseline, and that is a player control foul. I mentioned Tom Heil and Brian Schmidt, along with Phil Kukta and Corey Jones, the coaching staff on the BW side, as John Carroll calls a timeout. This will give us some ample time here to introduce the coaching staff on the JCU side. Pete Moran in his 4th season as the head coach of the Blue Streaks, 2008 graduate at John Carroll, and an assistant for 5 years under his father Mike, who of course is the legendary head coach for the Blue Streaks. 25 years, Mike Moran went 459 wins, 229 losses, Final Four appearance back in the early 2000s on a team that his son Pete played on. Pat Moran also part of the coaching staff and was a part of that team. Frank O'Brien, longtime assistant coach. Spencer Rule has been on the coaching staff for a decade, sometimes as a student and now postgraduate, still coaching for John Carroll. Dom Mitiga is the graduate assistant, Ryan Height and Mike Moran, the student assistants. Awfully hot start here for BW. Boy, this is such a different story than what they saw last night when it seemed like nothing was going in. BW 10 of 13 from the floor so far, 77%. And they've hit 6 of 8 three-pointers with only 2 turnovers in the first 8 minutes. And all of a sudden they are running the Blue Streaks out of the gym. John Carroll's hit 6 of 14 from the floor, which is certainly fine, 43%. But not able to keep up with this scorching hot start from the brown and gold. All right, Eric Hanna at the point. Trubisky gets it right back from Brown. Working the left side of the floor. Hanna thought he had a driving lane. Corbin Anthony, who is in the game for the first time, is the 4th of the 4 seniors. The other 3 all start, Hippler, Hess, and Sartain, but Anthony from Madison, Ohio, out there guarding right at the top of the arc, pressuring Driscoll. Under 11 and a half minutes in the opening half. Jackson Simmons decides to raise. No hand in his face, he airmailed it. And Wennis fell down when he tried to grab the rebound. Sartain is never going to sneak his way open around the three-point line. That's a tough play. Good bucket. Hugh Brown over the top of Luke Driscoll. Skip pass toward the right corner. Albert, who frankly might be the most athletic player on BW's roster. Don't be fooled by his small stature at 5'8". Misfired on the layup. 29-17, nearly halfway through the opening stanza. Sartain drives and kicks. Much better defensive effort from the Yellow Jackets so far tonight. Simmons helps hedge up top. Brown picked up his dribble, and there's a foul with 4 seconds on the shot clock. Yellow Jackets bailed them out. They had played good defense for almost that whole possession. One change here, Trubisky leaves the floor. Luke Hippler comes back on. Mentioned the all-time series right off the top of the broadcast has been tight. BW leads 64-63, but it's even been that close since the start of the 2011-2012 season. Last 20 meetings, John Carroll has an 11-9 advantage. That one's floated towards Simmons. Always fun when these two get together. Oh, big-time bucket. Jake Snyder. Nothing but net. And the Yellow Jackets continue this scorching hot start from the floor. They've hit 11 of 16 shots, 7 of 10 three balls. The foul there is called against Samson Albert. You know, it's probably not a surprise to BW that they're getting as many three-point attempts right now as they're getting, because last night they shot 41 three-pointers. And I know it sounds silly, but a whole lot of those 41 were not very well contested. And that's a bit head-scratching as Hippler, with a good drive, can't finish it off. BW, at least especially since Tom Heil took over this program 6 years ago, have probably shot more three-pointers than just about every college basketball team you watch. And in some cases, that's a product of where the game is. Snyder just a little off. He had a good night last night, 6 of 14, but the rest of the team struggled a bit, including Mazzio, who was 0 of 7 last night. Not going to see that happen very often. A little hand check foul from Driscoll. It's all BW in the first half right now tonight, 32-17, 9:01 on the timer. Jackets make a quick sub, and it's Leon Leveski that checks into the game. Sophomore from Brook Park, basically BW's backyard, went to high school across the street at Berea Mid-Park. Hippler turns around and missed, but an offensive rebound for Emil Hess. Left side three didn't go. Good ball control from Hippler to hang on to that. Finds Sartain. And a hand check foul, no shot. Anyways, I have to be honest, I was surprised when I saw the box score. and saw that the Yellow Jackets shot 41 threes, and it wasn't like they all came in one burst. They took 21 in the first half, 20 in the second half. But there were times last night that Anthony Mazzeo, for instance, was so open. A little bucket there from Hess. Mazzeo was almost so open that he had to shoot it, even if he wasn't in a good rhythm. Mazzeo, the one Yellow Jacket that struggled in particular last night. We'll see if he can get back in a good rhythm here tonight. Certainly off to a good start. Approaching the 8-minute mark. Driscoll in rhythm. Oh, yeah. Baldwin Wallace has just hit their 8th three-pointer of the first half in 12 tries. Left corner three ball. Trubisky bangs one home. The Jackets call a timeout. 35-22. 12 three-pointers in this game in the first 12 minutes between the two teams, but it's the Jackets out front. Baldwin Wallace leads by a baker's dozen, 7:52 left in the first half. And right now, one of the big differences in the game, other than simply the three-point shooting numbers, BW has scored 11 points off of 5 John Carroll turnovers. The Blue Streaks have scored only 2 points off 3 BW mistakes. If you can capitalize on your opponent's miscues, certainly going to help your cause. Wennis feeds Pfeiffer. Decides to raise from about 12 feet and missed it, but a foul on the rebound. I think Wennis got fouled. Who hit him? It's on Hippler. John Carroll also has not gotten to the free throw line yet. Jackets have hit 3 of 3 from the stripe. But with so much outside shooting, there haven't been that many whistles in the grand scheme of things. Oh, what a move. Mazzeo with an absolute dime. And Drew Wennis easily lays it in. 37-22. And how about this start for the freshman Wennis? 16 points. That's a tough try from Trubisky. Didn't drop. In the corner, Zalba catch and shoot. Just off target. Baldwin Wallace has had some phenomenal three-point shooters over the last 6 or 7 years. Truly one of the best, in my opinion. Cam Kuhn, who graduated several years ago at this point. Jake Snyder hits a corner three ball and then looks back toward the JCU bench. I don't know if somebody was giving him the business over there or not. Anyways, Cam Kuhn was dynamite. Not quite Jackson Sartain good, but certainly one of the best BW three-point shooters. Had a 50-point game in his career against Mount Union. And the Yellow Jackets have had some pretty wild contests in which they've hit a boatload of three-pointers. The school record for three-pointers made in a game is 18. That's happened twice in this past decade. Both times, ironically, against Mount Union. One of those was Cam Kuhn's game that he went off for those 50 points. And the Jackets have approached that 18 three-pointers made mark, frankly, quite a few times. They've had 15 or more on a whole bunch of occasions. But have never quite been able here in the last 2 years to break that record. Well, considering there's still 6:17 left in the first half, and the Jackets are 9 of 14 from three-point range, you can file that one away in the back of your mind for now. Hot shooting night for sure. BW from the floor in general, 64%. They lead by 14. Mazzio working on Chambers. Good pass. Pfeiffer goes underneath. Rob Watson, the third, can't follow. Little on-ball pressure in the backcourt against Hanna. First time we're seeing P.J. Flannery on the floor. P.J.'s older brother, Sean, was a great guard for the Blue Streaks for several years. Of course, his father, the head coach at St. Edward High School, and one of the all-time great coaches in high school basketball here in Greater Cleveland. That fouls on Watson. And a 1-and-1 opportunity now for Chambers. I think it's a ton of fun when these two schools get together, and there is such a Northeast Ohio flavor on their rosters. And that hasn't always been the case, but is often true. Chambers missed it. Boy, how did that not fall? Pfeiffer grabbed the rebound. All Jackets so far tonight as Mazzio raises. And Baldwin Wallace just hit their 10th three-pointer in less than 15 minutes in the first half. 43-26. Chambers rejected. Mazzio back up the floor. It's a blocking foul. You would not know that Baldwin Wallace is 1-4 this season by watching them play the way they are at the moment. This is such a young BW team. Mazzio hits the first. Freshmen on this roster: Luke Driscoll, Drew Wennis, Trevor Mackey, Jordan Garland, Rob Watson, Christian Pfeiffer, and Wyatt Flynn. Sophomores: Jake Snyder, Samson Albert, Anthony Mazzio, Jackson Simmons, Leon Levesque, and Luke Coyne. It's practically the whole roster. That one's lost out of bounds. Terrell Hicks, a first-year player, although he's a junior. I mentioned earlier Shane Zalba, the only third-year junior on the team. And disappointingly, Luke Schaefer, who is battling a shoulder injury, is unavailable for the foreseeable future. He was BW's leading scorer last year. He's still sitting over on the bench. He's very much been a part of the program, but unable to really play much with that shoulder injury. Hasn't gotten on the floor this year. Chambers clears him out, uses the forearm, and there's the whistle. I'll tell you what, Pfeiffer and Watson are really playing well in that low post. 45-26. Good ball rotation. Pfeiffer into the corner. Zalba had an opening at the rim, but he was blocked. How about that work from Brandon Heigelman, the freshman out of Talmadge, who came from the left block down to the right side and met Zalba and rejected him. Mazzio off the inbound. Chambers blocks him from behind. Pete Moran standing over on that bench. Not quite as animated as his old man. Mike Moran was about as entertaining to watch as a basketball coach as the game was itself. Nobody was more passionate about watching the game. But amazingly, like a light switch, the game would end and the game was over and that was it. And you'd go back to the slightly less competitive side. Chambers to the free throw line. I thought it was an awfully nice touch here a few years ago in that final season when the Yellow Jackets chose to recognize Coach Moran. Just a way to honor the rivalry and the success that he had had. And a thank you and a sign of respect. The Yellow Jacket athletic director at the time, Chris Diaz, came out and met Coach Moran at half court, and they had a nice little pregame ceremony recognizing him. I thought that was a great, classy move by the folks here at BW. Watson grabs the missed three ball. It's an 18-point game, 45-27. Snyder on Chambers. This is Zalba. All of a sudden, the perimeter defense tightening quite a bit. It certainly should. The Jackets have hit 10 of 15 threes in the first half, 15 of 26 shots overall. Jackson Simmons comes back in. The big difference for me this year in watching this Jackets team, while they are young, this is a much bigger team than what we've seen in years past. There is some real size and athleticism as Jake Snyder hits another triple try from the corner. I think Baldwin Wallace, give him a year or so to get things going as Chambers power dribbles and got fouled. If you give this Yellow Jacket team basically this year to develop some chemistry, let the friendship sink in a little bit, really hit the weights hard and let the coaching staff do their thing. And when hopefully the pandemic and its effects subside a bit, I got a feeling this Yellow Jacket team could be a serious contender in the OAC for a few years. Emmett Chambers got it. This kid could be a real problem too in this rivalry, especially next year when he's in his senior season. JCU's had a couple of big men over the years in addition to some of their electrifying three-point shooters. Under 3.5 minutes to play. Mazzio raises. That was never really close to the rim. Blue Streaks are down 20 here late in the first half. Good contested shot, but Heigelman able to convert. 48-30, and you certainly can feel the pace at which both sides are comfortable playing at. This has not been a game where there's been a whole lot of half-court offense. That one is last touch by Simmons. You try to look past a little bit the oddity of being in this gymnasium tonight for a rivalry game where usually this place is rocking, especially if it's a Saturday game. Sartain fades away. Oh, that is indefensible. What a shot, Jackson Sartain. His foot was on the line, though. It's not a three-pointer. Still give him 10 points in the first half to lead the Blue Streaks. Mazzio hits another one. Can you believe this? BW is 12 of 19 from three-point range in the first half. Hugh Brown misfires, 51-32. Most of the time, these two teams, because of their geographical nature in this conference, end up playing each other on Wednesdays, which certainly makes for some fun Wednesday night games, as Sartain tried the same spot from behind the arc. And that one's off Chambers. They don't often play on Saturdays, but when you do get those weekend games, they are usually well attended. Certainly miss the student section and the cheerleaders. And because there's so many Northeast Ohio guys that play on these two teams, usually get lots of family and friends that'll travel. Final minute and a half in the opening half. Mazzio steps back. It's a long two. No, I beg your pardon. It is a three ball. I mean, this is almost laughable at this point. BW's hit 13 of 20 from three-point range in the first half. Sartain drives and misses, but a really good effort from Hippler to get the ball back. Beg your pardon, Corbin Anthony. And then a foul was called on the putback try. 54-32. And all of a sudden, this is a night that John Carroll feels like they are just chasing the game. 22-point lead for the Jackets. Anthony hits the first. I do think it's extremely fair to point out that John Carroll for having not played 3 consecutive games because of COVID. I would imagine that in some regard, they're still trying to get their legs back a little bit and just get the competitive nature of the game flowing again. They're certainly playing hard, but missing on some shots that typically go down. Mazzio, good ball fake. Simmons with under a minute to play in the first half. Driscoll found an opening. Good bounce pass. Jackson Simmons couldn't finish it off. Great ball rotation, but a tough misfire. 3 ball from right at the top of the arc, and O'Toole misfires. Goes back the other way here. 54-34. Mazzio has 20 points in the first half. He was 2 for 13 shooting last night and missed all 7 threes. Drew Wennis, 4 of 4 from deep. He's got 16. Jake Snyder, 9 points on 3 threes. This has been an absolute deluge from BW. 10 seconds on the shot clock and 10 between the 2 clocks. Mazzio back to Simmons. Good drive by Driscoll, but he misses the layup. It was a good design play. 7 seconds before halftime. O'Toole down the middle of the key, finger rolls it home. 3 seconds. This is Mazzio. He never got a chance to shoot it. Good play by Corbin Anthony there from behind. Wow, if you're a Yellow Jacket fan, you love this first half. 54-36, 13 first half threes in 20 tries. 20 for Mazzio, 16 for Wennis, 9 for Jake Snyder. And the Yellow Jackets look unstoppable tonight. Jackson Sartain, 2 of 6 from deep, 10 points, 4 of 11 overall from the floor. 5 for Mason Trubisky, 4 apiece from Hippler and Hess. The rest of the Blue Streaks only have 2 or 3 points. And so Baldwin Wallace, perhaps the only thing that was going to stop them there in the opening half was the buzzer for halftime. 54-36 the score at the break. We'll step aside during halftime and bring you live streaming coverage of the second half in just a little bit. It's the Yellow Jackets out front by 18 points as they try to get John Carroll back for a 3-point loss a night ago. Well, it certainly was an entertaining first half between Baldwin Wallace and John Carroll, but the score is not particularly close at the moment. The Yellow Jackets lead 54-36. It was entertaining because three-pointers were flying left and right, especially from BW, who hit 13 threes in the first half. They are 5 away from tying the school record. We've got 20 minutes to see if they can do it. Jackson Sartain is the all-time leading three-point shooter in the history of OAC basketball. And he buries a three the first 15 seconds of the half. To give you an idea, by the way, just how impressive that is, as Wennis raises for three. That was a brick. The Ohio Athletic Conference is the third oldest conference in the country. Mazzeo off the mark. Now Jake Snyder. Well, he won't raise or pass. Instead he drives. Zalba in trouble. Wennis open. Wennis hits. The third oldest conference in NCAA history. League is nearly 120 years old. Only the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association, which is a D3 league, and the Big Ten, which was founded back in 1895. Only two conferences in the country that are older than the Ohio Athletic Conference. So to be the all-time leading three-point shooter in the history of the league, I realize the three-point line hasn't been around since 1902, but you get the picture. It is certainly something cool to hang your hat on, and the fact that he did it in 3 years is probably even more ridiculous. And I'm glad that's one of the few things that the pandemic couldn't hinder. Would have been a real shame if he needed his senior year to break that and maybe had far fewer opportunities to get there. Hippler can't finish it off after he was fouled. Christian Pfeiffer going to get hit with the whistle there. 57-39. By the way, how about the game that Drew Wennis is having? And you kind of get the feeling that the true freshman is telling John Carroll, hey, I'm going to be a real pest for 4 years. Free throw up and good. Wennis yesterday, 21 points in the debut of the crosstown rivalry. And he followed it up with 16 in the first half tonight, 7 of 9 shooting. Mazzeo and Wennis have each hit 5 threes this evening. Well, you give them enough chances at it, eventually they're probably going to score. Mason Trubisky gets credit for the 2. And it's a 15-point game. Zalba, good crossover. That was way too easy. I'm not usually critical of bad defense, but that was not John Carroll's best effort. 59-42. Oh, great crossover. Hanna to the rack. 59-44. Snyder raises. That one is a little off to the right. Hippler was wide open. In fact, he was so open he was almost uncomfortable, so he decided to drive. Snyder grabbed the rebound but lost it off his own foot. Rebounding margin is probably the one thing that's really bothering BW at the moment. They're -7 on the glass. Hanna. Look how close Sartain is being covered by Mazzeo. Trubisky. Oh, how did that not go home? Loose on the floor. Wennis dives on top of it. Good effort. Mazzeo. Oh, and it ripped away by Sartain, but he didn't pull it away fast enough. It's called a jump ball. Apparently, Mazzeo held onto it just long enough to force the whistle for the tie-up instead of the straight steal. And it's going to stay on this end of the floor. Shot clock's at 22, so plenty of time here. Zalba got the matchup he wanted, drove all the way down the lane, kicked out to Wennis. Mazzio into the middle of the paint, and an unfriendly bounce. Here comes Hippler. Ooh, Zalba thought he got all ball there, but he's whistled for at least getting some skin. By the way, our officials tonight, Chris Nelson, Jay McMichael, and Kyle Stewart. And a substitution as Trubisky comes back in. Hippler has a seat. These two schools have been represented in each of the last 3 OAC championship games. John Carroll won the tournament back in 2018. BW won the tournament 2019. And JCU lost in the OAC tournament championship game to Mount Union last year. Good defense. Really good work by the Jackets there. They come up the floor up 15. Zalba went flying to the basket, and he's called for the foul. Suffice it to say, the Yellow Jacket coaching staff didn't like that call. Pfeiffer leaves the floor here. Jackson Simmons coming in. And Luke Driscoll back in there for the Jackets. It'll be Zalba that has a quick seat. Looks like Hugh Brown just checked back in too. Hugh will run the point. O'Toole finds Sartain, who's had kind of a quiet night. And a hand check foul. Sartain all-time against John Carroll. I know I told you about his three-point shooting prowess, but he's only really had one game that he went absolutely crazy. His freshman year, scored 10 points in a loss, 5 points in a win, and he was held scoreless in the OAC semifinal game, which, by the way, is the only time these two schools have played against each other in the OAC tournament since the 2011-2012 season. Left corner, good ball fake from Brown. Freed himself up for a long 2. And Simmons grabs a rebound. Sophomore season, Sartain had 18 in an overtime loss at home and a 13-point performance, losing in this gymnasium. Good play by Hugh Brown. John Carroll with a little momentum here, 59-46. Snyder dribbling out of control. Called for the carry. As a junior, Sartain scored 11 points, losing here. But then, 2 times back that John Carroll and BW met, this would have been just about 1 year ago. Last time BW went to Carroll last year. Take yesterday out of the equation. Sartain had 29 points, 11 of 14 shooting. He had 5 of 6 threes. That was easily his best performance in this rivalry history. And Sartain played well last night, scored 19, hit 4 of 6 threes, but only 3 of 11 from inside the three-point line last night. Tonight, Sartain's got 13 on 3 of 7 shooting, which means he is 4 three-pointers shy of 300 for his career. Mazzio. That one got bobbled around a little bit. Driscoll flings it up there and in. You know, he's got kind of a quirky shooting motion, does Luke Driscoll, so that actually may not have been quite as off balance as it looked. And it went in purely. 61-46. Hanna into the middle of the key, and he got hacked. Well, the second half certainly has had a more challenging rhythm to it. John Carroll outscoring BW since halftime, 10-7. Well, Pete Moran trying to get an explanation. I think he was under the impression that it should have been a shooting foul. He clearly doesn't agree. Chambers with a rack attack. Fouled from behind by Watson, preventing Watson called over to the bench. And Chambers would have certainly had a big two-handed dunk there. I'm not sure so much that the coaching staff was upset with the foul as they were with perhaps the initial defense that allowed Chambers to beat him. That's just my gut feeling. Well, Chambers hits 1 out of 2, so it's 61-47. Chambers has had a decent game, but all of his points are from the free throw line so far. Snyder got it taken away. Thrown back. Hippler. He just straight lost the ball. It's the last touch by Watson. All right. Mason Trubisky, Jackson Sartain both back on the floor here, along with Hippler, Chambers, and Hannah. And now Pfeiffer in for Watson, so it's Simmons, Driscoll, Pfeiffer, Mazzio, and Snyder for BW. 14-point game at the moment. Clock's at 14:22, and we get a foul away from the ball. It's on Mazzio. The referee said that Mazzio turned his shoulder into him. Mazzio, he's a good kid. He certainly wasn't looking for an argument there, but you could tell he didn't necessarily agree with it. Meanwhile, Yellow Jackets committed their 7th team foul with 14:22 left in the second half, and so it's 1-1 for John Carroll. Chambers tried to tip it up and in. Instead, Pfeiffer pulled away from it. Mazzio on the baseline. Driscoll three ball, good. Second three of the second half for the Jackets. They're up to 15 in the game. Hannah. Trubisky. Oh, good job by Jackson Simmons extending his hands as Hippler tried to cut through the key. Tom Heil wants the offense to pick up the tempo a little bit. Mazzio had his pocket picked, and then Jackson Simmons is called for the foul in the backcourt. That's the 8th foul on the Jackets, and so the Streaks go back to the free throw line. (64-47). Mazzio has not scored since halftime. Wennis has 3 points in the second half. Those two combined for 36 of BW's 54 before the break. Driscoll got doubled, opened Snyder up, found Simmons cutting to the hoop, turns around and can't bank it home. And Pfeiffer commits a foul as he tried to tip it in. Apparently Pfeiffer went over the back, and that's now the 9th foul on BW. So more foul shots for Chambers. Connor O'Toole comes back in. Luke Hippler has a seat. This game's a long way from being over, and this is not a comfortable position for BW to be in. Chambers hits the first. If you're going to put somebody at the free throw line, though, if you're BW, no offense to Chambers, but he's probably the guy you want there. He's not been all that accurate consistently throughout his career. But to his credit, hits both of those. 64-49. Well, this is an important stretch, I think, for the Jackets. It's been a tough season. Look, you're 1-4. You opened the year with some really tough competition. Pfeiffer got hit hard. It's a jump ball. No foul. It was all ball there underneath the basket. Possession arrow back to the blue and gold. Anyways, a really tough opening stretch. The Jackets losing twice to Mount Union. They split with Marietta last week. That was certainly promising. Marietta's got a very good team. As Sartain hits a three ball, his fourth. But losing last night, off to a 1-4 start. And eventually, somewhere along the way, even when you're a young team, you got to learn how to win. And the Jackets are certainly showing that they've got the firepower to do it. But this is a really tough league every year. It might change a little bit which teams are hot, but without question, this is one of the best Division III basketball conferences in the country every single season. Pfeiffer's three is good. That's the 16th three-pointer of the night for BW, 67-52. Sartain raises. Oh, he hits another one. 5 of them for Jackson Sartain. 67-55. Snyder working on Sartain, picked up his dribble. And a foul underneath the bucket on Eric Hanna. It's only the 4th foul on John Carroll this half. And Pete Moran thinks this is a good time to call a timeout, so he'll stop things for a moment. 11:56 left in regulation. Full timeout, John Carroll. It's the Jackets 67, the Blue Streaks 55. Back in a moment here in BW. Eleven minutes, 56 seconds left in regulation. Baldwin Wallace 67, John Carroll 55. I'm Brendan Gulick, glad to be with you on BWYellowJackets.com for the 128th all-time meeting between the Jackets and Blue Streaks. BW leads the all-time series by the slimmest of margins, 64-63. Luke Driscoll stepped on the sideline, he's out of bounds. So the Jackets turn it over for the 11th time. And the majority of those now have come in the second half. They only had 5 through the first 20 minutes, but 6 in the first 8.5 minutes of the second half. Sartain raises. That's three-point number 299 in Jackson Sartain's career. More importantly, it cuts the deficit to just 9 points now. BW has led by as many as 22. Pfeiffer, not quite. Simmons grabbed the offensive rebound. Snyder raises. Clanks long, and he ends up grabbing his own board. Slings it across. Driscoll didn't have a lot of shooting space, makes a good move, and shoots a floater on the baseline. 69-58 as the Yellow Jacket bench tries to come to life, and Pfeiffer is called for the foul. Well, Pfeiffer picks up, I think that's his fourth. Sure is. So Pfeiffer's got 4. The Yellow Jackets lead by 11, and it stays that way after the miss. That's their 10th team foul, so John Carroll could have a lot of foul shots coming the rest of this half. Meanwhile, Pfeiffer stays in the game. It's Mazzio that checks out. Shane Zalba returns. Wow, lane violation on Corbin Anthony. No free throw. Yikes. That's a tough mistake. You don't see that whistled very often either. Zalba. Good hesitation through behind him. Pfeiffer back to Simmons. Redirected to Snyder for 3. 17 three-pointers for the Yellow Jackets, one shy of tying the school record. This one's deflected. Here comes Driscoll. Extends the layup and scores. Timeout BW. 74-58, just like that. The Yellow Jackets are back out front by 16 points. And it cut it down to 9. Just looking back in BW history here, they hit 18 threes for the second time in program history on December 2nd, 2015. And that was the game that Cam Kuhn, I mentioned earlier, had 51 points against Mount Union. Cam himself hit 9 of 13 threes. The Yellow Jackets as a team hit 18 of 33. Jalen Hollinger hit 5 threes that game. Mike Kaminsky, Jake Featheroff, Zach Brandy, and Zach Warner all hit threes for the Jackets in that one too. It's a throwback to the 2015-16 season. That was the second time that BW had ever scored 18 threes in a game as a team. The first time they did that was during the 2013-14 season, also against Mount Union, in a game that the Jackets lost 104-98. They hit 18 of 31 threes. Kevin Krakowiak had a 9 for 12 three-point shooting spree that night. Grant Fairhurst hit 4. Skylar Simpson hit 3 off the bench. Jaron Crow and Zach Warner each had 1 as well. And while the Jackets have had lots of opportunities and many that were 14, 15, 16 threes in a game, they have not gotten to 18 since. They're sitting on 17 threes with 10 minutes to play tonight. Jackson Simmons. Driscoll, Snyder to tie the record. You betcha! 18 of them for BW tonight with 9:45 to play. And they're pouring it on the streaks. 77-58. Hippler behind him. And the baseline jump shot from Emil Hess misfired. Haven't seen much of Hess lately here. Snyder for a new record. Missed it short. Got his own miss. This is Zalba now with BW back up by 19 points. And Zalba drew a foul. Boy, this flurry has come fast and furious. 10-0 run for BW over the last 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Wennis, who's hardly played here lately. Zalba, too much heat on it. Chambers grabs the rebound, and Wennis and Snyder were both there. One of them fouled him. It's Andrew Wennis. That's his third. Foul situation for the Jackets. Pfeiffer playing with 4 fouls. Wennis has 3. He's on the floor. Zalba has 3 fouls. He's on the floor. Rob Watson on the bench with 3 fouls. First free throw from Chambers is off target. Meanwhile, Jackson Sartain, leading scorer in the ballgame with 22, 8 of 15 shooting, 6 of 10 from three-point range, and he is potentially closing in on a single-game record for John Carroll three-point land. This has been one fun contest if you like watching the three-pointer fly. Samson Albert just replaced Wennis on the floor. Driscoll swings it around. Albert thought he could drive, almost lost the handle. Driscoll hoists it up off balance and it went in. You know, it never looks pretty coming out of his hand, but he finds a way to put it home more often than not. Luke Driscoll. Stolen away by Zalba. Easy layup coming. 81-58. And Pete Moran has to call a timeout. Boy, this has been such a strange game in the second half. It's a 14-0 run for BW after John Carroll had cut it to 9 with 11:45 to play. And maybe for the first time had given BW just a little bit of nervousness. All of a sudden the Jackets have woken back up and they're pouring it on again. Right down Broadway, Sartain for 2. The 23-point lead that was just made back to 21. 23 is the largest lead of the game. Well, I think Albert and Pfeiffer miscommunicated there, but it didn't cost them the possession. Samson Albert was open, wants to drive on Chambers, up and underneath for 2. 83-60. Sartain fouled by Albert. Two foul shots coming for Sartain, who has been a very good free throw shooter throughout his career. The first one rattles away. 7:17 left on the timer. Trubisky checks out, replaced by Heigelman. Got it. 83-61. And Albert traveled. All of a sudden, BW having a little trouble again. Sometimes that youth will shine through a bit. Sartain to a cutting Heigelman, poked away. Albert, a little out of control. Pfeiffer got boxed out, couldn't put it home. Skipped over, Heigelman left on an island. Can't make it count. Snyder rips away the rebound from behind Eric Hanna. I don't think Hanna ever knew he was there. Good effort. Albert apparently, while standing in the corner, was out of bounds there. So Sampson checks out. Anthony Mazzio comes back in. Mazzio still scoreless here in the second half. Snyder up to 15. Luke Driscoll's got 14 points tonight. Really good performance from Driscoll. That is a career high for him. Snyder approaching a career high. He had 18 against John Carroll last night. Sartain. This is William Wallace, who's playing for the first time, wearing number 3 in Navy. Wallace to the rim. Jackson Simmons pulls it away. Mazzio up the right side of the floor. Just about 6 minutes to go. Right now, the Jackets firmly in control by 22 points. Wennis by himself. Not quite. Sartain easily down the middle of the floor. Jackson Sartain with 27 points. Snyder. Not quite. Here's Sartain feeding in the low key. Corbin Anthony turns around and lays it in. (83-65). Wennis kicks it back out. 5 minutes to play. Snyder, good move. He tucked it, went down the left side of the key, and then goes back on defense and pokes it away from Wallace. Really good effort. Timeout, Yellow Jackets. They'll call a full timeout. Tom Heil could sense his offense getting a little flat there. We'll step aside too. It's all BW right now, 83-65 with 4:38 to go here in Berea. Well, it's 83-65. Baldwin Wallace way out front of John Carroll, but we're watching for really two records right now that could, or I guess 2 milestones that could be eclipsed. BW with 18 threes as a team tonight. If they hit one more, it'll be a new record. They've already tied the school record. 3rd time in program history that they've hit 18 threes in a game. That 18th three came 5.5 minutes ago, though. That one's knocked out by Carroll with 11 to shoot. Meanwhile, Jackson Sartain is sitting on 299 career three-pointers. He's already the all-time three-point king in OAC history in three-pointers made, attempted, and percentage. So there's no doubting who the all-time great shooter is. Left side, Wennis traveled. Sartain in his career has hit 8 threes in a game twice, and he's hit 7 3-pointers in a game 4 times. But the school record is 9 in a game. Michael Hartnett did it in 2010, Joey Meyer in 2011. One more 3 tonight for Sartain would give him 7 for the 5th time in his career. I guess 7 would be for at least the 7th time. Twice he hit 8. I'll make sure I say that right. There are 4 minutes to go. We'll see if he finds a way to do it, maybe on this shot. Oh, it bounced over the side of the rim and good. 3:53 to play. It's history. Jackson Sartain with his 300th career 3-point field goal. To think that he's done it in 3 seasons plus 3 games is simply remarkable. Jake Snyder from the corner. Now the Yellow Jacket new record, 19 threes. Jake Snyder puts this one in the history books for BW. Sartain fed it off. Zalba picked it away. This is Jackson Simmons laying it in for 2. Corbin Anthony got it. Timeout Streaks. 88-71 with 3:01 to play. And to think that such a historical night would happen with absolutely nobody here to see it. It's just it's a shame, but certainly hope you're watching at home. These two teams have been through so much. And frankly, this was a tough week for Division III athletics. If you're not aware, the Division III National Championships Committee with the NCAA made a tough decision on Wednesday, and for now the 2nd consecutive year, because of COVID-19, they have canceled the Division III National Championship tournaments in basketball, swimming and diving, indoor track, and in wrestling. All of the D3 winter sports athletes will not be able to play in an NCAA tournament this year. It was just not logistically possible, even though there are about 200 teams, give or take, playing D3 men's basketball. It's only about 45% of the total population. The majority are not playing basketball for their respective teams this year. So that means competing for an OAC championship is the only thing, as Zalba couldn't get it in bounds and called a 30-second timeout. That means that competing for an OAC title is the ultimate prize this year for both of these two teams. Jackets lead this one by 16 with 2:56 to play. And tonight is actually the halfway point of the regular season. It's a 6-week season with games on Friday and Saturday. You surely know that by now, given the last couple weeks. And so the remaining schedule for Baldwin-Wallace will include games next week against Capital, the following week against Heidelberg, and the final weekend in February will be played against Ohio Northern. Meanwhile, John Carroll plays the Polar Bears next week. They'll play Muskingum in 2 weeks, and they'll close the season with Otterbein the 26th and 27th. And then the OAC tournament starts on Monday, March 1st. OAC championship scheduled for Saturday, March 6th. And all 10 teams make the tournament this year. Mazzio in front of his own bench. 5 to shoot. Pulls up for a long 2 and misses it short, but Jackson Simmons was there to try and clean up, and he missed it short. P.J. Flannery the rebound. Some new faces in now. Will Ostrowski underneath the basket. This 3 comes from the corner, and it's buried by Jared Bublinik. 88-74. Wennis. Oh, how does that not go in? And Snyder will pull it out with 2 minutes to play. Jackson Sartain's had his best game against BW in his storied career. 30 points tonight. 11 of 18 from the floor, 7 of 11 threes as Wennes lays that one in. Wennes now at 21 points against John Carroll for the second straight night. That one flung up there by Griffin Hanna. Former St. Ignatius Wildcat misfired. The foul is on Wennes. Looks like Heigelman is waiting to check back in. Meanwhile, that's the fourth on Wennes. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's his fifth. It says fourth in the stats, but it appears that Wennes may have fouled out of the game. So it looks like he's done for the night. 90-75. Ostrowski just checked out. That brought Heigelman back in. Up and good, and another timeout for John Carroll. Well, Blue Streaks call a timeout. We'll step aside 2 here in Berea. Well, as we come back on the floor, Jackson Sartain has a seat over on the John Carroll bench, and I wonder if he'll return. He has tied his career high with 30 points for the third time. He did it as a sophomore against Capital, and last year during his junior season did so against Keene State on December 29th. But of course, he also hit 7 3-pointers tonight, which gives him 300 threes in his career. And yet the story of the night is more about the Yellow Jackets' ridiculous three-point shooting as a team. 19 of 35. They were 13 of 20 at halftime. The 19 three-pointers made is an all-time BW program record. Snyder threw one up, and that's a shot clock violation. Jackets have gotten contributions from a lot of places. Drew Wennes, the leading scorer, with 21 points. 20 for Anthony Mazzio, 18 for Jake Snyder. Luke Driscoll's had a great game, career-high 14. Christian Pfeiffer has 7. Shane Zalba has 6 points but 10 assists. Jackson Simmons, only 2 points but 8 rebounds tonight. BW doing a good job all the way around. Couple of substitutions. Rob Watson has come back in for the Jackets along with Luke Coyne. Driscoll running the point here. Trevor Mackey, young man from Brunswick, has just checked in. And Leon Levesky also back in there. Final minute. Mackey gives it off. Driscoll back to Mackey, who will raise. Levesky grabs the rebound. Jackets pull it out here. About a 9-second difference between game and shot clock. Long three for Coyne. It was halfway down. Final seconds ticking off. Good save. That three flung up there. Flannery scores. Griffin Hanna, they'll count it. Griffin Hanna missed it, but then Flannery put it home, and the game will come to a close with that basket counting 90-78, the final score tonight. And at the end of the night, 90-78 is the most important of the numbers you'll see, but this was an historic evening in Berea for a few reasons. Jackson Sartain individually gets to 300 career three-pointers. And the Baldwin-Wallace Yellow Jackets improved to 2-4 with a fabulous rivalry victory over John Carroll, 90-78, and a day where they hit 19 three-pointers as a team. That is an all-time BW program record. So congratulations to the Jackets. Well done. They split the season series with John Carroll, 1-1, each team winning on their home floor. And this continues to be a very close series all time. Been a ton of fun to follow this rivalry over the years, and there's an awful lot of good young talent on both teams that makes you think that there are still some very good basketball games to come here in the near future. With the loss, John Carroll drops to 1-2, but they feel like it's somewhat of a victory to have now played 2 games in a row in the same weekend after they'd had their last 3 games canceled because of COVID. And hopefully the Blue Streaks will be healthy enough to keep playing for the rest of the regular season. And who knows, maybe these two teams might see each other again come OAC tournament time in the first week of March. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But 2 good games for sure, considering last night was a 3-point win for John Carroll, and tonight a historic shooting night for the Yellow Jackets. I'm Brendan Gulick. This game is sponsored by Medical Mutual of Ohio, the official healthcare provider of Baldwin-Wallace University, by Buffalo Wild Wings in Medina, Strongsville, and Warrensville Heights, by American International, by Barron's Bus Company, and by Santo's Italian Restaurant in Middleburg Heights. One more time, the final score, Baldwin-Wallace 90, John Carroll 78. We'll see you next Friday night when the Yellow Jackets will be back on the hard court and try to take on the second half of the OAC season. Great win for the Jackets. So long, everybody.